It's only with the grace of God that I'm sitting here 1 year clean because I was one of those hopeless types. Um, I don't know what I'm going to share, and I feel like I've lived a few lifetimes. I was born in Lesotho to normal parents. My dad was alcoholic, and yeah, it was like a normal upbringing where we had everything. But for me, as Jamila, nothing was ever enough. I wanted more. I wanted more of everything, and what they gave me was their best, but it was never good enough. Um, so I used to listen to my mom telling me stories of, what a good child I was, and they would go to the casino, and I would just sit in the room, and they'd come back, and I'm like all happy and playing around, and that was the time I grabbed onto, okay, if I do what they think, what they want me to do, I can get what I want, and that's where the manipulation kicked in, and the dishonesty was manipulative. I could act. When the big book talks about the actor, that was me. I could, I would just go through life. I gave people power. They would tell me how to live. They would give me, if they wanted me to act a certain way, I could act a certain way. Dress a certain way, I would do it, because that was who I am. I had no identity, totally no identity. Anyway, I lived through a family that was quite dysfunctional as well, where it was basically fighting. And I was in the middle of that constantly, like trying to fix, trying to stop the fights. And it like put fear in me. Like I had this debilitating fear of death. I don't know where that came from, but it was. I would read books and go into another world because my world was not good enough. I would dream. And I had an ability to isolate in a crowd because I was never good enough. I was never enough. And I had that empty feeling that everybody speaks about. That's exactly how I felt, and I thought life was like that. Anyway, fast forward a few years later, and my biggest fear would come true where my dad killed himself in front of me. And at that moment, I dealt in feelings. My feelings were real. It was all about me. And I couldn't be bothered where my sisters were. Like, it was my sisters and my brother. It was just about me and my feelings. And I've lost my dad. And I didn't even care about my mom. I blame my mom for what had happened, but I acted like, no, it's fine. It happens. And that's how I could put on. Nobody would know exactly how I'm feeling because I was dishonest about, it was never authentic. After my dad passed away, it was, um, after he passed away, I realized that, wow, I can get more attention, but negative attention, where people would feel sorry for me and people just want to do things for me. And my mom didn't know what to do with me because I was I just had a cloud over me. I didn't know how to live life. I didn't know how to be happy. And she sent me to boarding school, to one of the best boarding schools in South Africa. And yeah, I'm entitled. I think I deserve everything, and it was all about me. Didn't care about my sisters. Didn't care that they lost a dad. Didn't care that my mom lost a husband. It was all about Jamila losing her dad, who was her hero. And I realize now from a young age that I wanted to be an alcoholic because he was an alcoholic, and I thought that I'm going to be like him, just like him. After a few years at boarding school, my uncle, who was my father's brother, big part of my life, big part. He took me out of boarding school and he says, "You've got to go to an Islamic school." Rebel. There I started. I was like, "It's your fault. I don't want to go, but I still went. I went to Cape Town. I lived in Cape Town. And then I just decided that I'm not going to carry on with school. If I don't go to a business school, I don't want to do anything. And that's me being rebellious and manipulating to get what I want. And my mother eventually gave in to me. And also the fear of failure. I had such big fear of failure. I always wanted to be this big achiever. If I got an A minus in any of my subjects, that was never good enough. I always had to be like an A plus student. So the fear of failure just also made me quit, because until today that I've never completed anything. Even antibiotics, if the doctor says take antibiotics, I won't finish the course because I do what I want to do. I went to live at home with my mother, and I just became this unruly child. I got into a relationship, but I was running my own business. So I had this thing that from 16 years old, I'm running my own business, and it was all about money. It was all about gambling. I got into gambling at that age. It was like crazy, and the person I was in a relationship with was also an addict, and that's when I also started my first drink. Like, I would just go to clubs and just drink and, just do whatever I wanted to do. And my uncle would find out, and then he'd give me a belt. I grew up with a belting, yes. And that wouldn't make a difference to me. I'd still go out and cause chaos. I didn't know what a consequence was. Because if I messed up, I always had a buffer. Somebody would always come and bail me out, and somebody wouldn't believe the things I'm doing because I could act. I could put on an act with different crowds. My fear of death was like still crippling. Um, and like 5 years down the line after my dad passed away, my other fear came to fruition, and my mom passed away. She met with an accident. And that was like, God. God is cruel. There's no such thing as God. And now I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm going to be the way I want to be because the whole world is cruel. And people hurt me, so I'm not interested. And when my mom passed away, then my uncle took us in, and he was my fatherly figure. He played a big role in my life. He was like everything to me. He wouldn't believe an ugly word that was said against me, and if I ever got into trouble, he was there. So we lived with him, and he gave me an ultimatum: it's time for you to get married, because that's what Muslim people do. Like, at a certain age, a girl must get married. And I was like, yes, because I'm the people pleaser. I do as people tell me to do, and I just want everybody else to be happy. I do it, and then I sit with the resentment. So I did as he said, and I was like, cool. I met my ex-husband, and yeah, I got married. My kids were unfortunate enough to have a mother like me, because, God, I was just going to cause chaos for them. I got married, and it was a toxic relationship. It was all about, initially, it was just about me doing what he wants, being the ideal wife, working, and having kids and just being that. And I conformed to that. And I conformed to those ideals. And then there came a time where I was like, he was doing stuffs, and I thought, okay, people just hurt me, and I can't do this anymore. And I went into revenge mode, where I was like, if you think you can play me, I'll teach you how the game was played. That was the way I lived my life. My poor kids had the disadvantage of being of having me as a mother, basically. That's the disadvantage that they had. It's like, they never asked for a mother like me, but it's God's will, it's not mine. And then I lived my life where I found my drug of choice. I know we're not supposed to say what, but it was I found cocaine, and that was like that when I took that, I could be who I wanted to be, and I could be this confident person. I could speak to people, and I just didn't care, and that was good because my feelings were real. I thought my thoughts and feelings were very real, and nobody knew I was doing this because I could act. I would go to weddings, to my sister's wedding, and I'd be using, and nobody had a clue. That my sister actually spoke to me this week and she's like, "You're a master. Nobody knew you were doing all this." And yeah, so I was using and living life and still carrying on with my responsibilities. And my perception was so warped that I thought, loving anyone was buying them things. Because I worked, I owned businesses, and all I did was I gave my kids like money, I gave them all the comforts, and I thought that was love. But when I got home in the evening, I was isolating, I was sleeping, and all I taught my kids was it's okay to run away from life. You can go and work and come back and isolate. That's okay. And after a few years, I had had enough and I got divorced. Went back to Lesotho, but after after more drama because in my life I like drama. I like the negative attention on me. And after a suicide attempt, couldn't handle it. I went back to Lesotho to live with my brother, and there I isolated again. And I used my medication. As a master, I could hide. I could hide. Nobody knew exactly where I was, what I was doing. That's the way I lived my life. And I saw my life go down in Lesotho because I met drug dealers who would just give me whatever I want and I didn't have to pay for it. And that was like, I was like, oh wow, this is life. And my kids would go to their dad every second weekend, and um, uh, when they're not there, then I'm having a party. My life was just about parties, and my life was just based on me and how I'm going to make myself feel better and how I'm going to avoid the world. And but once I took my drug of choice, then I'd be this social butterfly. I'd be this totally like social butterfly where I also started using in my uncle's office, which was mad because if he caught me, I was in big trouble, but I didn't care. Um, I just did what I wanted to do. And after a few years, my ex-husband married my friend. And I was like, this is life. This is what people do to you. They're going to hurt you. So before they hurt you, you're going to hurt them. And that's what I did. I went around and I was a whirlwind of trouble. If anyone was involved with me, they're gonna get trouble because I had no feelings. I couldn't love anyone. I said I love my kids. I don't love them. I don't know what it is to give them time. I never gave them time. Um, I thought just giving them material stuffs, that was what love was all about. Um, if I can cook them a meal, that's that's fine. But I don't have to spend that time with them. And anyway, my ex-husband got divorced 6 months later. Gives me a call and says, "Let's make it work for the kids." And in true alcoholic style, the same thing that destroyed me, the same thing that broke me, I went back to it. But this time I did a geographical and I decided that, okay, fine, we'll get back together. And I lied to everybody and said it was for the kids. But if I sit here and I'm like brutally honest, it was not for the kids. It was for me because I could see my life spiraling out of control with the drugs and the partying and the total chaos. So I went back to him without telling my family because I do what I want to do and I don't care about their feelings. And they still supported me. My sister still came, they visited me, and they tried to make me comfortable. And that's when I went to Malaysia. I lived in Malaysia with my ex-husband and my kids for a year, for almost a year. And what I didn't realize was I took me with me. Nothing was going to solve my problem. I had a me problem. And if you asked me that at that time, it was everybody else's fault. It was God. It was my ex-husband. It was my family. It was my trauma. It was my pain. It was everybody else's fault. I didn't have a part to play. But now I can see clearly. I have. I was just a disaster, a walking disaster. Anyway, fast forward. I got tired of Malaysia. I got tired of the fighting. I got tired of whatever the madness that was going on there. And I couldn't handle my feelings again. And I would just isolate and not care about the kids and let them go to tuition alone and take the train. And there I was sleeping my life away, hiding away from the world when I had everything at my fingertips. I had everything. And then I just woke up one day and I was like, I'm sick of this place and I'm going back home. I need a helper and I'm not going to sit and clean for everybody because that's the entitled me. That's the entitled me. I don't want to do anything for anyone else because it's all about me and my feelings. So I went back, I flew back to South Africa and my ex-husband and my kids flew back a week later. And that was the end of the trip. And yeah, carried on with the relationship where it was just like mad. I wasn't using my drug of choice at that time. I was just on meds because I had another visit to the psych ward where I tried to kill myself, couldn't handle life, didn't want to live life. I thought life was it wasn't for me. I thought if sleeping was so sweet, then death must be sweeter. And I tried everything. Nothing worked. And I was like, God, you don't want me. And I don't have a purpose on this earth. And that's how I live my life. Um, 2 years later, he couldn't handle me, and I was done. And he called my sister to fetch me, and I ended up in Durban. Durban that was where I was gonna hit rock bottom. I still didn't know what consequences were because it was about everybody else. It was everybody else's fault. I'm acting this way because I lost my parents. I'm acting this way because everybody hates me. I'm acting this way because I'm the poor little girl. Don't have enough. I want more. And I also had like jealousy, like a lot of jealousy. If any of my friends looked better because I didn't feel good and I didn't like myself, I was just gonna ghost them. I'd just avoid them and not be around them because I didn't know how to be a friend as well. So I came back, and I came back. My sister fetched me, and my family was always there. They gave me everything I needed. I had a 3-bedroom flat in Shlanga. I had a car. I had my daughter with me. My son couldn't live with me because he was doing grade 11 and no school would take him. But that was still not enough. That was still not enough to get me out of myself, and that was not enough to make me want to live. I didn't know how to have fun. I constantly had this gray cloud over me. And my poor kids had to watch that. My daughter, yeah, she did stuffs. And I called her dad to say, please, can you talk to her? This is what she's doing. And he took her away. And I was fine with that because now's my time to sleep. Now's my time to use. Now's my time to do what I want to do. And now's my time to get freedom. Maybe this is what I need. And I didn't care. I didn't care that she was gone. I didn't care that um, the grandparents were taking care of them. I was never there emotionally. I was never there to support her. Until this day, I'll never know how much damage I have done to her. Yeah, I feel it sometimes when I speak to her, but no, I won't know the extent because, yeah, I won't know the extent. Anyway, I got into a relationship, but no feelings. I didn't. I didn't have any feelings for anyone. And it was also toxic. It was about using, it was about partying, it was a mad relationship, and my family were not impressed with it, and they cut me off. But before they can cut me off, I've already got people lined up to replace the people in my life, because that's what I did. I replaced people. If I saw a problem coming, I've already got people lined up to replace those people in my life, because I was also scared of being abandoned. I was scared of being alone, but I also wanted to be alone. Contradiction. And I stayed in this relationship for 5 years. Don't know how, I don't know why, but I did it. And my uncle at this point was like not impressed with me. He wouldn't speak to me. He was hard on me, and he was like, I just wanted to impress him. I just wanted him to be happy with me. But nothing I did would take away the hurt that I caused them. And a few years down the line, I saw a problem coming, and I was like, nah, it's time to replace. And I found somebody else. I was like a serial dater. I didn't even have a month in a month of freedom, because I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to be with myself. It was all about having that person to show me how to live. And today I'm super grateful that I met this guy, and I met him. He would bring me to my knees, because I'm the actor. I did everything in like secretively. His was like an open book. He used, and he was like, everybody knew about it. And that's how my family found out. Otherwise, I would have still gone another 15 years and nobody would have known a thing I was doing. Yeah, I met him, and my family found out that I'm using another drug of choice, which I vowed never to use. And that's where I started crack. But it didn't matter what I was using, it was about my feelings. It was changing my feelings and not feeling anything. And it didn't matter what it was. If you put it in front of me, I was going to use it. It took me 3 months to bring me to my knees. 3 months of using that drug of choice. But I also had another one that gave me that junkie pride to say, I'm not injecting street drugs. I'm injecting meds. That's the pride I had. I was like, nothing can happen to me. And my family still didn't know. I would isolate and not show them a thing. I'd be able to take meds in front of them and act like I'm super fine. That's how I conducted my life. And on my last binge, didn't matter what I had Xanax, had every single thing I could think about, which took me into psychosis. And that scared me, because God was not taking my life. So psychosis, I'm going to end up like in a mental asylum. And I took myself to the hospital, didn't tell my family. They were looking for me high and low. It was crazy. And they called me, and I didn't take their calls. And like 2 days later, when I did, I was like, I'm in a psych ward. And they didn't know what to say. They were like, we're done. But it didn't even move me. It didn't move me, because it was everybody else's fault that I am the way I am. I was just built that way. Anyways, psychologists, psychiatrists, I love them to bits, because I could manipulate them to the bitter ends. I could get any medication I wanted. All I had to do was, I'm feeling this way, and that's what they would do. They would just give me what I wanted, because poor Jamila, she's the victim. And I played it, and I used it. Anyway, this was God doing for me what I could not do for myself. When my psychologist sat with me, it took a week to convince me to go to rehab. And she's like, you need a holiday. You need to get away from, you've been through such a hectic life, and you need to get away from it. And I refused and I refused and I refused and finally agreed. And that was God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because my family decided to send me to Cedars. I thought I was going to the hotel, and I thought, okay, fine, that's where I'll go. I need it. And when I got to Cedars, I think I was still in psychosis. The only thing I worried about was my bag of meds, because I needed my meds. Nobody could tell me anything about meds. And I went there, and after a few days of seeing what it's all about, I started blaming my family. I was like, they threw me away here. And I wouldn't listen to a thing, because I felt like, when I sat in the meetings, I admitted I was an alcoholic because everybody else did it. Um, but I didn't accept it. I was like, if you had my life, you would use to. If you experienced what I experienced, you would use to. And I was in such denial, but my denial ran so deep because I could still go like maybe a few months, maybe years without street drugs, but I still had my meds, and that was like, I'm not an addict, I'm not an alcoholic. You people all are, and I can still do without my street drugs. But that was where the madness was. And I remember going into treatment the first weekend I was there, because I broke rules. I did what I wanted to do, and they said, put your name down once to make a phone call. Jamila will put her name twice and think she can get away with it. And one of the counselors caught me out, and she gave me my reality. But I sat there and I still couldn't hear. I sat there and it was like funny for me. It was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I manipulated my way through that, through that whole time I was there, and I just hated every bit of it, because I was not one of you. I was special. I was different. I would throw tantrums over a packet of cigarettes because I have all the money. I would be told that I lived in a crack house, and I'd be like, oh my God, I had my own flat. I didn't need to live in a crack house. And I was told things in concerns groups but it didn't move me. It was like you're speaking to somebody and I can't hear a thing you're saying. I went into Life Story, and it was all self-pity, victim. I know that now, I can see it. And when I got out of there after my feedback, I was like in anger mode. I was like attack mode. I was like, no way, you people don't understand. You don't know what I've been through. And that's how I live my life. I broke every single rule you can think about. I shared cigarettes when I was not allowed to share cigarettes. I was not gonna do what anyone told me to do. And if anyone told me to go and help somebody, I was like, it's about me. How is this gonna help me? But I'd look at the counselor in her face and say, yes, I'll do it. But I'm not gonna do it because it wasn't helping me. Um, I got into a dishonest relationship, but not because I cared, because I wanted to do what I wanted to do and I wanted to get out of there. My whole aim was to now get out of there, get my family back, and cause chaos some more and do what I want, like just use. That was where what I wanted to do actually. Um, a few weeks down the line, I met my brother at the counselor said, you're meeting your brother. And when I met my brother, I was like, at the end of February, you're picking me up. If you don't pick me up, I'm walking. And I wasn't scared of anything. I was invincible. I thought I was invincible. I could just do what I wanted to do. And when I realized that I'm not going to get what I want, and my brother's not going to fetch me, and my brother's not going to take me out of this situation, I decided to put on another act. And I looked at everybody that had the program. I looked at everybody that had it, and I was like, this is how I'm going to act. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy them. So I can trick everybody and do these steps and write it, but how is the steps going to help me? It's never going to help me. I was like, this program's never going to help me. I mean, psychologists, psychiatrists, everybody failed. And that was my disease. That was my disease. As my higher power would have it, I got into a dishonest relationship, and they found out about it. And I thought I'd hidden it. I thought I had gotten away with it, but I didn't. And I had a full concerns group, didn't move me. I had my harsh reality given to me, didn't move me. I wouldn't shed a tear because I had no tears left. And that was like my saving grace. And before I could, and I went to my counselor, I was like, I will own up to everything, but you've got to let me leave this place. I'm not staying another day. My bag was packed, ready to leave. But they wouldn't hear anything I had to say. I remember the counselor also giving me just trying to tell me the desperation in their voice to say, this is what my life is like. But you could have given me any lecture you wanted, but I wouldn't believe it because I knew life to be a different way. And I knew I was gonna get like the bad end of the stick anyway. Whatever I did, I was gonna get it. Anyway, I got posted to Midlands, and that's where I met my Moses. Nobody, nobody in my entire life has ever given me my reality like the way I was given my reality in the Midlands. And basically that was my saving grace. Today I sit here and I'm like super grateful. I'm super grateful for my journey. I couldn't understand it at the time, but now I can see it for what it really is. I still didn't like I couldn't connect to the damage I had done because it was about me. It was how life was unfair to me. I couldn't. I sat in an office where a counselor screamed at me and said, do you not realize what you have done? And I was like, no. And he's like, leave everything you're doing and do your life story. And I don't want to hear the bullshit. I want to hear the bullshit. I just want to hear about what you've done to your kids and just that. And that's when I went to life story and I started connecting in like drips and drabs. My counselor didn't want to hear what I had to say, and she was like, it's all about action. And it wasn't the love I wanted, but it was the love I needed. Because I had family that would just give in to me and do anything I wanted them to do for me. And I'm sure it was difficult for them to just leave me there, especially my brother. Um, he's the one that would also come and save me. Until today, as I sit here, he's still my savior. He still wants to come and do things for me. And I'm like, no, live your life. Anyway, I went on an 18-kilometer hike, which was painful. My pain, always my pain. And I started going through my whole life in detail. And that was my whole life in detail. And that's when I was like, shit, I've done damage. All the guilt, the shame, everything just started hitting me. And then I was like, I can't do this. I've got to listen. I can't do it. And that's when the penny dropped. I started listening. I started hearing. I had concern groups. And in those concern groups, I'd get concerned for the smallest thing, but I know I was going to get hit really harshly. And I would go to my sponsor and I'd complain. I'd be like, why? It's such a small concern. Why give me such a harsh reality? But that's exactly what I needed. I needed to connect. I needed to connect to the pain I had caused because wherever I go, I cause pain. Anyway, I got to step 6 and 7 and I realized that these are my character defects. I have to change my behavior. And I didn't know how to do it because 45 years of all those character defects, all those things, the people pleasing that I thought was like made me a good person, my delusion again. I thought I was the best person. And I went to my counselor. I was like, I can't do this. I can't change, and I don't know what to do. Please help me. And that's when I was like, I need to follow her suggestion, because at that time she was my higher power, and without her, and without me seeing her example, because had she lectured me, I wouldn't have heard her. But it was just her living by example that I wanted what she had. She could laugh, and that's what I wanted. I just wanted laughter. And I did start laughing. And I went to her one day and I was like, but I'm laughing. What's happening? Why? She's like, that's what the program is about. Um, I'll fast forward again. I got to the end of treatment and I didn't want to leave, because I was comfortable. That's where I got life. That's where I found my life. And she's like, it's time for you to go to the halfway house. And then my manipulation came in again, because that's like a knee-jerk reaction. I gave an ultimatum: I'm not going to the halfway house if you're not going to be my sponsor. And she's like, I'll think about it. And I was like, but I'm not going to go because I don't have to go. I'm entitled. I can do whatever I want, and I can get my own apartment, and I can live with my kids and live my life. And yeah, so a week later, she was like, okay, I will still be your sponsor, but you leave on Saturday. And I was like, God, I don't want to go. And I came to the halfway house where I would see more growth. Hated every bit of it, because my pain was what I didn't like. So anyway, I came to the halfway house and I was super uncomfortable. I had to do things that I had to confront. I hate confrontation because I'd rather keep the peace. And I had a moment where I had to bring an issue to concerns, and I didn't bring it. I didn't follow suggestion. And I know today that if I don't follow suggestion, I'm going to sit in pain. And I actually called her, and forgetting what the program is all about, it's about others, it's not about me anymore. I was like, I hate people. I don't want to be around people, and I don't want these uncomfortable situations. And I know that I fight. I still have a lot of fight left in me. So whatever's good for me, I fight it, and then until I realize that it's my pain, and I then I just like follow the suggestion. Um, Today I know that I'm constantly doing a step 6 and 7. I'm constantly doing it, but it's difficult. I don't have all the answers. I don't know the program. It's about getting guidance from my sponsor. It's about getting guidance from the group. Today it's about other people. It's no longer about me. It's about what I can do for others. And that's basically what makes me feel better today. And I've never finished anything in my life. Whatever it is, it was just fear-based, fear of failure. And I finished the steps. And that was an achievement for me. I'm not perfect. I'm still insane. I have a little bit, like 1% of sanity back. But I know I still have a lot of work to do, and that's the power of the program. I have a fellowship around me, and I'm not talking of the people around me here. I have a fellowship of people overseas who don't see me on the meeting, and they will call me out, and they'll be like, there's something going on, you need to be back at the meetings. And that's the power of the program. And if the program can do this for me, the program can do it for anyone. But today I know that I know I've got a disease of reaction. I can react in any way I want, but I've got the spiritual principles. I know today that I can cause all the chaos and I can have all these feelings, but I have a choice. I have a choice if I want to pick up. If I want to pick up, I have that choice. And if I do pick up, I know I had a reservation. But just for today, I'm so grateful that I don't have the obsession to use, that I just want to make a change in my life and I want to live. For the first time in my life, I can say I really want to live. And it's all through the grace of my higher power, the grace of the program. I can't even explain how much this program has done for me, because nobody could get me out of myself. And I'm grateful to the treatment center, because I would never get it done in the rooms, because I had been to the rooms in 2015 and I looked at the differences, not the similarities. And I was special and different. I didn't lose anything, so I was not one of you. Yeah, so yeah, that's all my story. Thanks for letting me share.